Welcome to Timelines, episode 161, recorded December 30th, 2016. Today on Timelines, we have Jessica Rhodes from Providence, Rhode Island. Jessica is the founder and CEO of Interview Connections, the premier source for booking outstanding podcast guests. Jessica is the host of the hit weekly show Internet Connections TV. She's the host of Roads to Success, and she is the co-host with Corey Coates of the Podcast Producers, a 10-episode audio series about the art and business of podcasting. Well, Jessica, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Now, as I was reading that, I was thinking, I think you're in Warwick, aren't you?
I am. Yeah.
So I just moved you to Rhode Island.
It's, you know what? If you live in Rhode Island, basically you're either in Providence or Newport.
I know those areas because I lived up in Boston and my son went to the Coast Guard Academy. So I've been to your area many a time, flown into Rhode Island, of course, a lot too.
Yeah. Great airport, by the way.
Oh, it is nice. Rhode Island's a nice area. It's got like everything is so close and nice malls and
I love it.
Beautiful coastline and water and it's just a nice area. Small though. It's very small.
It is small. It is small, but I like it. Very much a small town feel.
Probably get to know your senators pretty well. Get to see them once in a while.
Yeah, and I used to work in politics, and my husband still does, so I know a lot of politicians.
We'll have to have him come on Meet the Voter. We're doing, we have just a little side note commercial. We do a lot of shows now. We're developing a lot of things in timelines in the business. And on Sunday, we have two shows now. In the morning, one is we're candidates and how to run for office locally.
Yeah.
And in the evening, we're moving the Meet the Voter, which is taken off of Meet the Press, meeting that to the evening. So it's a lot of fun. We do a lot of different kinds of shows, different levels. This world has changed so much in the last 2 years since I've known you.
Yeah.
Well, what I want to do, and I'm more of a producer and an engineer than I am an online guy. So you see me reading and it's working through it, but we don't have to be perfect on this. We just have to have fun and get out information.
Absolutely.
So what are you doing? You're all dressed up. You're going to do some shows next?
So I knew I had this video interview with you. I'm actually I had my website redesigned and that's going to be launching probably next week, actually. So I do a little welcome video on my website. So I decided that I would go ahead and film that today. It's like when you do videos and you have to, well, for us ladies, put makeup on and have a nice shirt and make sure your hair looks nice. You may as well get all your videos out and all at once. So that's what I'm working on today.
That said, I know this is your show, but I'm like, this is like, we were just talking about, this shirt is like a quick shirt. I only have like 3 full-on sweatshirts. One of them looks nice. I really need to up that in my business, is look a little bit better on this 4080 resolution that we have on Blab. But because know, like, and trust. It's nice to look nice.
It is. I like to dress for success.
The early podcasters had that 3-day beard because they were behind a mic and never shaved and showed up. Yeah. So now we're getting more on video and streaming video on this. We're live right now. We have a live audience watching of about 10 people. It'll go up on YouTube within 15 minutes when we're done, and then within 2 hours, it'll be up on iTunes. It's really moving. This whole industry is changing, isn't it?
It really is. It definitely is. Yeah. And I mean, I think we're going to talk about resolutions, but I think, and predictions, but live streaming is just keeps getting bigger, especially for this coming year.
Yep. So with that, let's go into 2015, some of the things that happened. I know we talked about you had a new child. When I first met, you had 1, now you have 2, but you also doubled your business. So maybe if you have 3, you'll triple your business.
I know. I don't want to have any more. Yeah, no, I had a second baby. Lucy, she was born about 4.5 months ago. And from 2014 to 2015, I doubled my business. So that's very exciting. I think pregnancy and having babies gives you a lot of focus. And, when I was asked about kind of what my focus was in 2015, it was all focus, follow one course until success. I didn't really do anything new. Like we were talking before we started recording here about the new things I'm going to be doing and the training courses and things like that. I didn't do any of that in 2015. It was all like hiring a great team and just really making the business run extremely well. And it paid off. So yeah.
You said something, hiring a great team. I want to follow up on that. Mm-hmm. I've been in 2 years now podcasting, and my background is unique, but I really love podcasting. I love this environment, but it really is not podcasting. I call it netcasting now.
Yeah, I noticed that you use that terminology.
It's more, I do podcasting, yeah. But for example, you helped me out with a show early on and we were testing it. It was going to be called Podcaster's Home. In fact, I still have, that's my Twitter address. I have a lot of branding. And we did 12 shows with the very top people in the industry. And what I found was after talking to them is we tested it on YouTube. That probably would not be a great show that grows. So I talked to the very top people, Rob Walsh from Lipson. Yeah. And Rob was one of the defining factors to decide, let's not do that. But what we did do, what we found out is we put it on YouTube and it actually did okay on YouTube, like a 12 series. And you're on there and it did really well. So what we did is I took 5 or 6 of those, put those up on iTunes and timelines because they sort of fit the format. But the bottom line is it realized that podcasting was limited to just that audio and people want to know, like, and trust. They want to see you now.
Right. Yeah. I think that video is, it's key. I mean, that's what I do both. I do audio podcasts and I do a video show. And it's interesting that you talk about the video aspect because I do see a lot more podcasters recording via Blab. And so I think that's kind of an interesting, new change to the medium.
Yeah. Blab did not exist, when I started that Podcaster's Home, but YouTube did. I actually wrote script that showed people put out how to, and test your podcast first on YouTube before you go up into iTunes. Because iTunes is much more difficult to get there. It takes a few more steps. Another thing too, people don't realize is YouTube actually takes your recording and sound and does a pretty good job of modulating it and fixing it. Yeah. So it's a lot easier to go up on YouTube and then look at your show, understand your show, think about it, and then go to iTunes. But now with Blab, we have this new live feed Blab, which we have a great audience here asking questions. Yeah. And we'll get to those. We'll open it up with Jessica for about 10 or 15 minutes at the end. So much stuff changed in 2015. But you doubled your production. You had your new child. What's the child's name?
Lucy.
And I saw you at MNX when you were like pregnant. You were like pretty close there.
Yeah, I was, I think, like 4 or 5 months pregnant at NMX.
And I went live from the floor and you were on with me, which I appreciate that. You came on at about 7 or 8 folks. A lot of fun to see everybody. I probably won't travel as much, but the next thing you did, you actually got out and traveled a lot too.
I did. I got out and traveled a whole lot because I knew that I would kind of be hunkered down and not going a lot of places. Lucy's almost 5 months old now, so time really, really, really does fly. But because I knew I wouldn't be traveling a lot over the summer and this fall, I got to a lot of events. I went to Social Media Marketing World, New Media Expo, my dad's event, Dream Business Academy, and a sponsored event called Podfest, which is in Tampa. And I didn't go to it physically, but I did sponsor it and Skype into one of the sessions. And then I'll be going again this year. I'll actually be going as well as sponsoring it this year.
Right, the Podfest. Podfest is really going. Who are the managers of Podfest?
It's Chris and Katie Kremitzos. It's an event hosted by the Tampa Bay business owners.
That's nice.
Yeah, they're great. They do a really, really good job.
That's a lot of work putting on an event.
It definitely is.
Now I'm going to go back one more point. You said you talked about building your team. When we first met, did you have a team when you're doing your productions and coordinating between podcasters?
A very small team. So I hired my first virtual assistant probably late 2013. But at the beginning of 2015, I only had a couple of virtual assistants, 1 or 2. Now I have a team anywhere from 7 to 10 people. I sometimes lose track because I have some graphic designers and proofreaders, but our guest booking team, I just hired 2 new people 2 weeks ago. And so we've got a really strong team of guest bookers. So I've delegated almost all the guest booking and focused a lot of my time on marketing.
That's one thing. And I have not done well is building a team. I actually have a team, but we're a loose net team and I need to actually formalize it more. I really need a graphic design person.
Yeah, they're really handy to have.
I like graphics. I come from an artistic family, but there's just not enough time in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, good graphics person is good. That's another thing I did. I told this in 2015. I totally kind of created my branding around Jessica Rhodes. So I actually worked with a graphic designer and had her do, a logo for me and got all my social media, cover photos and banners and all that. Got a branding tag. So I did a lot of branding this year.
Yeah, you did well. I saw you really move, but you seemed like you had a great business when I first met you. You were so busy. You were very busy.
Yeah, no, Interview Connections started in September of 2013. So my business brand has been going for a little while now, but I just, late 2015 is when I have really been building up my personal brand, kind of like separate from the actual business
By
brand.
the way, if you see me laughing in the YouTube afterward, I'm looking up. We've got some really great people watching. Jonathan just sent me a note. Says, "Billy, you've got me and Roxanne. Of course, we're all a team. It's a back and forth team.
Oh,
We're evolving. I've known Jonathan. I got into and from the WordPress side. And Jonathan, you may have missed the first part when I talked about all the WordPress connections, and that was the workup. And absolutely, and we work back and forth. It's a relationship. And Jessica is one of the newer people on our team. What we've done is we formalized and broke down what it takes to do netcasting, which is more than podcasting. Mm-hmm. You've got to have an engineer. You have to have a producer. And we have a deputy producer. Roxanne is the backside production helping out. And then there's all sorts of other things. You have to have the talent, which you are acting as talent, as well as the engineering and all those things. Mm-hmm. So I've got 4 or 5 shows. Some shows I don't do any production. Jonathan does the production. And some shows I do everything.
Yeah.
So it's busy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It takes a lot of work.
Your top podcasters that you work with, what do you find that makes them successful?
Commitment. I mean, it's 100% commitment. And this is a very, it's a common question. Like, what does it take to be successful? And trust me, we could probably spend hours talking about all the marketing and all the tips and tricks to have a good show. But at the end of the day, I think podcasters that don't make it or aren't successful, they give up too soon. So I think what makes podcasters successful is they keep podcasting. They stick with it. I just did a video on this that's probably coming out in the next couple of weeks, but I just talk about how if you look at the top podcasters, they didn't have amazing shows on day one. They didn't have, tons of downloads on day one. Maybe they had more than some people if they already had an established brand online, but it takes a really long time for podcasting to really pay off. So you have to stay committed 100%. If you stick with it, you're going to have a really great show. I just think too many people give up too soon, and you just can't expect to see a lot of success early on.
Well, with that, we're going to go to a break.
Where would I see it? Oh, there it is.
Okay, we're back from the break, and I forgot to say the golden rule. We got to be quiet when we come back from the break, because I cut. That's my editing, but that's okay. Sorry, Jessica.
Okay.
The red dot's on. Let me start again. A couple seconds of silence. Sorry. Okay, we are back from the break. And Jessica's going to go over what she's going to do in 2016. And there's amazing, if you get all this done in 2016, you're going to be like a millionaire.
That's the goal.
So what are you going to do in 2016? What are the 3 things?
So yeah, I'm just getting out to a lot of conferences to kick off 2016 at the end of February. Interview Connections will be sponsoring PodFest in Tampa, Florida. So I'm going there and actually bringing one of my team members, Kathy, with me to the event. So actually bringing my team to an event with me is a big step, and very excited to do that. Should we go on to the other things, or?
Yeah, no, go ahead. On the events, just a little fast. I know you're going to do I'm going to go over, you're going to do the, what is it? Develop an online training course, which my hat's off there. You're going to write a book. So let's go back to the events. You're actually doing something different than I'm doing. I'm probably go to one event this year because I'm so busy doing the other things that you're doing. I'm going to go to the National Broadcasters Association event in Las Vegas and WordCamps. Love WordCamp. I love the people in WordCamp. So that's where I'm going to put my time. So where are you going to put your time for your events? And you're going to a lot.
I go to a lot of events. Honestly, the events are one of the best ways to meet potential clients and to just grow exposure for the business. I get out to as many events as I can. But it's hard. I mean, I have 2 young kids, so it's definitely, and our family doesn't live nearby. So for me to leave, it's not easy. So it takes a lot of, coordination. That's why I'm bringing my husband and my 2 children with me to Florida,
nice.
For PodFest. So, doing what I can, but I try to get out to as many events as I can. So social media marketing world, podcast movement, and Dream Business Academy, and hopefully another event or 2, because every event that I go to, I get more clients, meet more guests, more hosts. So it's a huge return on investment for what I'm doing. So I put a lot of investing into events.
The podcast community is relatively small.
Yeah.
When you see at the events, you see all the top people, you get to know them.
Yeah.
And Pat Flynn, for example, I sat right next to him. You get to talk to him one-on-one, and they're a very friendly group. You go into some of the private, or not the private, but sort of the gatherings and the get-togethers.
Yeah.
I'm going to be putting something together in April at the National Broadcasters, and it's going to be for podcasters and netcasters. It'll be a separate little event, just a gathering of us, those who will go to the nationals. Because, the people at the national level, they don't get it yet. They don't see what's happening coming around. Some do, but they don't quite get it yet. And the newspapers, the newspaper folks, I actually, at a Christmas party, and I've talked about this because I'm just amazed, I met one of the top executives of the local paper, and it's a big paper. Reno's a pretty good sized town, and they're dying. They're losing. I said, well, why don't you just create a little mini netcast TV station and start putting out every day, broadcasting on iTunes, a video of the news. And but they don't want to, they think that might cut into their paper business. I don't get it. Because I think that's
taken time for people to kind of come around to the idea.
Because they could advertise in the front of the paper and have 50,000 followers like that, I think, locally. And no one's done that. I don't think a local TV station, virtual type has really taken off yet. Do you know of any place that's happened?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Yeah, that's going to. I think that's going to happen in 2016. So anyway, you're going out a lot more than I am. So you're developing online training courses. We're doing the same thing. I've been developing an online training course all year. So I failed in 2015. Honestly, and I was doing it Blab came along. It's a lot harder to develop that than you can possibly imagine, unless you have some shortcuts. Do you know some tricks?
Well, I mean, like we were, talking before, and I mean, I call it an information product. The way a lot of, well, because there's different formats, right? So you can have a whole course with different modules and different videos and be doing like live trainings and coaching calls along with your students. Or you can have, my coach does this whole, it's something that he does with his clients is they'll interview them about their topic. So it's about, hour and a half, 2 hour long, basically, interview about that topic. It gets transcribed. There's bonus materials and people can purchase that and they get the CDs and the binder, the transcript. So that's kind of the information product that I'm looking at doing. But I mean, another thing I'm doing is, going to create a free video series as a way to build my list. Because, ebooks and special reports, they're not as enticing anymore for list building. People aren't as excited to download a free ebook. So I'm going to instead be making a free video series for my irresistible offer on my website. So that's also, kind of the course aspect, but do that for free.
Did John Lee Dumas launch a couple free courses this year and did real well, I think, didn't he? Was it this year? I'm not sure.
I don't follow John as closely, but he seems to do well in everything he does.
The reason why I asked that, I know you seemed to do some work for him early on, didn't you, when he took off?
Well, we both kind of started around the same time. And so I booked a lot of my clients on Entrepreneur on Fire. I think we're still in the resources section of their Podcasters Paradise site. I mean, he was never a client. We were never clients of each other's, but we, helped each other out early on.
All right. Yeah. That's part of the business,
Yeah, for sure.
You've done a lot of that. You've given a lot of goodwill to a lot of podcasters building your business early on.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be a giver and just, don't expect much in return. Like a lot of people want to like do something and say like, oh, well, do you have affiliate commissions or something like that? Just do, just refer, just be a big giver because it does pay off a lot.
And in timelines is up at 116. I'd say at least 30 of the first 100 came through your agency. And we
probably
every one of them was quality. Everyone was a good interview. Everyone, they all had good sound, they had good content, and they were successful people.
Yeah. And our program is application only. So there's a lot of people that want to be interviewed. We don't accept all people who want to be one of our clients. So people apply to be a client of ours. That's why our guests are all really quality.
And I know, one thing you said about consistency earlier about 216, and it reminded me, in the podcasting, we're doing a daily now, but when you're as a podcaster, if you change from whatever system you change to, you're going to lose some folks. I noticed that.
Yeah.
I slowed up to a weekly for a while, and you really do drop off. You have to stay in front of people. It's production, it's work.
Right.
Really be successful. You got to work hard at this business.
And that's why true.
Everybody doing a daily right now and getting it up right away on iTunes?
Well, there's people like big shows, Mike Pesca, The Gist, but that's, his full-time job in the Slate Podcast Network. That's a daily show that's up every day. But I'm not following, I listen to some, 2 and 3 day a week podcasts, like Mark Maron, I think is a 2 day a week show. I don't listen or follow any daily podcasts. As a listener, I tend to get bored after a while, or maybe, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know who's doing daily right now.
Well,
this is still doing daily.
Serial is number one. I look at the 150 top, which is produced by iTunes. And
yeah,
it's really interesting to see who are in there. What I am saying is there's a movement towards some bigger firms now taking over those top slots, and very few smaller folks. And there are a few in there. The Art of Charm is way high. And there's some old ones who are still there from just solopreneurs type. And Art of Charm is not a solopreneur, but
no.
Grammar Girl. From Reno, Nevada. She's a professor here in UNR in the same town. I get to see her once in a while.
Yeah, I met her at New Media Expo.
Yeah, it's amazing what she does, and she manages that pretty much herself.
Yeah,
it's grammar, and it's a very short clip, but she's in the top 150, and that's huge. If you're in the top 150, you've hit a home run. But you're starting to see bigger marketing firms starting to develop that now. And actually, Serial. What is that one that came out this year? I can't.
There's Serial, Startup, Gimlet Media. Yeah, Gimlet Media is the other big one that came out after Serial.
Publicly funded or funded through it's
a business. It's not it's not. They opened up for investors. So they have investors like Chris Sacca, and then they opened up for listeners to invest as well.
Pretty amazing what's happening. So the other thing that developing online training, we talked about that. Now writing a book, my hat's off to you. Go find a ghostwriter and then tell them what to write.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a lot of work, but writing a book is it's a great way to market and grow a business. It's a great way to, become an authority figure in your industry. And so that's a goal for mine. Again, I don't know if it's going to happen in 2016 or 2017, but it's on my my list over here of things I need to do.
Okay, so that's the last one. We're gonna bring you back next year about this time. We'll check in. So with that, we're gonna go to our final break. Well, Jessica, we are back from the break, and we're actually not back from the break because this is your commercial. So Jessica, tell the listener how they can get a hold of you and give us your commercial.
So I am Jessica Rhodes. I'm the founder and CEO of interviewconnections.com. So Interview Connections is the premier source for booking outstanding podcast guests. If you're a podcaster and you need great guests for your show, give us a call or go to interviewconnections.com. We also represent and work with entrepreneurs who want to get booked as guests on other shows. So getting exposure as an interviewee on podcasts, we can book you. So go to interviewconnections.com, or you can read my blog at jessicarhodes.biz.
Jessica, very good. That's interesting what you just said. I'm going to follow up before we go to one last question. A couple of people came through your organization on the timelines this year were Academy grads. And one of the Academy grads said, I don't have podcasts. I just go on lots and lots of podcasting. It's very successful.
Bet that was Tom Schwab.
Yeah, I love Tom. Tom was great.
Yeah.
He's featured on Podcaster's Home, which is my old dinosaur on the front. If you look at podcastershome.com, you'll see his little version right there. That was him. That was neat. And that led to some other good Academy grads. I always want Academy grads because I can give them a hard time, especially if they're Naval Academy grads.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
So anyway, that was really good, but he was focused and of being and getting out and going out and being that front person. But the front person has to have a team behind him, like you talked about earlier.
Yes, exactly.
So one last question, and this is a big one. I think, I've even heard other people say about podcasting may go away. I don't know if that's true, but what do you think is going to happen in this media? What's going to happen this year? I mean, we had Blab kicking this year. Where's podcasting going to be a year from now?
So a lot of people, like you mentioned, are moving their podcast to Blab. So they're recording, they're live streaming as they record. I think we're seeing a lot more of that, and we'll continue to see more of that. What I think is happening is, what I think will happen are people are really realizing that they need to be a lot more unique with their show. So we're going to see more narrative style podcasts. And we're going to see more podcasts with a unique angle. I think 2015 was full of a lot of very similar interview shows. We saw a lot of them launch, and we saw a lot of them fade. So I think that in 2016, I think people are going to start and be a little bit more unique and have their own angle and hopefully blaze their own trail so they can stick with it, for a lot longer. Because that's kind of what we talked about is commitment is the biggest key to success. You got to stick with it for the long haul.
Okay. I lied. One last question. If you were to start a new show today, what would you start it on? If you're a brand new podcaster?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I would probably
you're around these people.
I would probably start just a hobby podcast. Either like with my husband or with friends. I would love to do a show where it's just kind of co-hosted conversation. So just kind of like a lifestyle type podcast and just kind of like, shooting the crap.
Can we say that and keep it? I think we can say that on iTunes. Is that okay, iTunes? Is that okay, Apple?
I'm used to not cursing. I have 2 kids. So I would like to do probably a hobby fun podcast with friends and just talking about fun things.
That's kind of a fun one. Now that's really fun. That's not for the money. That's for the enjoyment.
Yeah, exactly. Because I really like podcasting, so I podcast about business and marketing. It's a business thing for me, but I like it a lot. I really like the medium. So I'd love to do a show with more kind of fun topics.
So with that, we're not going away. We're just finishing up the iTunes portion and we'll be up for the next 20 minutes for live audience to answer questions. So go away so we can all come up and talk to Jessica and we'll also be on YouTube. You can watch us on YouTube. So if you go to timelinesofsuccess.com, and I've got a new address coming out, but I don't want to give that out yet. Like there's a reason, but timelinesofsuccess.com. Yeah, you can find this show and all the show notes. You can also go to Podcasters Home. All my stuff links, netcasting101.com. It all links. I could go on with 17 websites, but I won't do that. Well, thank you, Jessica, for coming on iTunes. Stay on. We'll go to live audience. And thank you, audience. We have a good audience today.
Oh.
Okay, folks, we are back on the YouTube portion. iTunes just finished up. We got Jessica on for Jessica, you got another 20 minutes to answer questions?
I have probably 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going to have to leave by 1, but
I know you've got to produce today and it's very nice. Appreciate that. Usually podcasters plan for about an hour and that's good. That means I need to get right to production. Go ahead, Roxanne.
I just want to know, there's not many women that do podcast, right?
Podcasting is most certainly more dominated by men, but there are a lot of women podcasters. Just you don't see quite as many in the top in the iTunes rankings. So there's a lot of women podcasters. You just don't see them as much in the top of iTunes rankings.
Okay.
That's the first thing I noticed on Blab is there are a lot more women on Blab than there were podcasts.
Yeah. Yeah.
I noticed that. Early on in podcasting, that was a big discussion. The top podcasters are all like male, and that's a big thing. And because it's sort of the geeky thing of the radio, the radio crowd, not the radio crowd, but the techie thing. And I would say it was almost 5 to 1 men or something like that, at least initially.
I've always wondered about it, but I didn't know if I could talk to myself. That's why.
Well, you do interviews or, co-host it and just have conversations with people.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Jessica represents some of the very top people in the country to come on shows, and there's a pecking order. What are the very very, very top, like the actors and the top book launches, they're coming on too.
Yeah. I mean, people are definitely seeing podcasting as, one of the best ways to promote what they're doing, promote their books. So I've been talking to more public relations agencies who want to get their clients booked. And, there's people that want to do, just kind of podcast tours. Like when they have a book coming out, they just want to do a whole bunch of podcast interviews as a way to promote themselves.
Well,
go ahead.
I think that's a good way too. And people don't have to travel.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's basically getting speaking opportunities without having to travel in front of a very targeted niched audience.
Yeah. I'm not a huge podcast interview. WP Tonic is pretty big in the WordPress world, but some of our interviews will get over a period of time in a year, 400 to 500 downloads. And that's a lot of people to get in front of when you think about it. I know.
It's true. And, the whole big downloads or small downloads, it's so subjective. But even if you have, if you have 100 downloads an episode, think about being in a room with 100 physical people. That's a lot of people. So it's hard. It's sometimes you look at a number and you just think, oh, that's small or that's big. But when you think about what does 100 bodies in a room look like that's a really good sized room. It's a lot of people to be in front of talking to.
You know, it's really strange is and I always look at this, some of the interviews get more downloads than others. What do you think does that?
That's interesting. I noticed that too. Like some episodes of mine on my show have been downloaded way more. And it's not necessarily, you know, how like big of a name the guest is. Like one of my shows was how to hire virtual assistants. And I think that if it's a topic that's not that there aren't a lot of other podcasts talking about it, you're going to be, you know, that's going to be the go-to episode that people go to. So for that example, you know, that my episode about finding and hiring virtual assistants, there aren't a whole lot of podcasts that are talking about that specific topic, especially I interviewed a virtual assistant. There aren't a lot of virtual assistants out there being interviewed on podcasts. So I think it's, you know, shows that it's a topic that not a lot of other people are talking about. And also, you know, how much you're promoting it. So how much you and the guest promote the show is most likely going to correlate with, you know, how many downloads the show's getting.
Right. Now, how do you deal with your clients? How do you get them to have a good presence on podcasting? And that's one of the hardest things is we do some local interviews and I send Karen out with a mic and all that stuff, but just teaching people the culture and how to do good interviews. Is there any trick to getting all your folks to do well? That's what I like. When I get somebody who's referred in from your organization, they always do well.
They do. And on our program is application only. So a lot of times our guests are coming to us already with interview experience. So are already very successful and polished. And Bill, I hate to do this to you. I plan to be here until 12:45.
No, I got you.
And my baby is, they're outside waiting for me and she's hungry. So I really have to go.
Well, Jessica, we thank you very much. I'll stay on the next few minutes.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Sorry I have to leave, but I really appreciate the time and interviewing me. Thank you so much.
Well, you'll be up on iTunes this afternoon, so start promoting.
Okay, definitely will. Thank you, guys.
Right,
bye.
Well, that's good to have Jessica on. Anyone want to chit chat real fast? I'm still recording and I'll turn the recorder off because just me doesn't cut it. But so folks, this is Bill. I'm back on. I just want to talk about tomorrow's show. And tomorrow's show at 9:00 Pacific, we have Jim Collison. Jim Collison is the Average Guy Network. He's very, very successful in this online streaming and podcasting. But the other thing is he's the IT manager for Gallup Technologies out of Omaha, Nebraska. And he does a lot of their marketing and media for Gallup. I mean, Gallup is huge. And he is the man who does all of Gallup. You know, Gallup does that. They have some training schools for business, but they also do polling, national polling. So the top tech guy from Gallup will be on tomorrow at 9:00. Interesting guy. He'll tell you everything. And what he tries to do with this show, the average guy, it's the Average Guy Network. And he's got a pretty good network. What he tries to do is basically that makes a little bit of money off Amazon affiliates, but he's not in it for the money. He actually tries to look at technology that the hobbyists can use and evolve. And then of course he's at the next level. So he's looking at that bridge back and forth. Very, very interesting guy. He's been on the show a few times, and I think you're going to enjoy tomorrow's show. So with that, I'm going to turn the recorder off. Hey, this is Bill. Thanks for listening in, and we'll see you tomorrow at 9:00 Pacific.